Challenges facing the early childhood development sector have led to growing calls for prioritization of children to ensure a bright future for the country. Insufficient government support, underfunding and overstretched practitioners are few of the issues that the sector once addressed. Right to early childhood development and practitioners in the sector are set to launch a People's Manifesto for early childhood development in the country. To discuss this, I'm now joined by Right ECD coordinator, that's Tsepo Manje. Tsepo, a pleasure to have you on the program this afternoon. Firstly, can you explain the significance of the People's Manifesto for ECDs in the country and also its objectives?
Thank you so much for having me and also platforming Real Reform for ECD. Real Reform for ECD is a movement made up of parents, NGOs, ECD practitioners and children's rights activists. And we are a movement advocating for holistic, well-funded, inclusive and quality early childhood development services in South Africa. And as we know, on 29th of May 2024, we will be going to the national and provincial elections. And in the lead up to this, all political parties release their manifestos, which outline the promises that they make to the nation going into the elections and what they will do following the elections. As the sector, we reviewed these manifestos, particularly interested in what they are saying about early childhood development. And we find that although there is some promise to addressing the challenges in early childhood development, most if not all these manifestos are just skimming the surface of the depth of early childhood development and the need, what needs to be done to address those challenges. So what this ECD manifesto tries to do is pull out all grounded information about how to address the challenges in early childhood development, drawn from the practitioners on the ground. And we're making it an offering to political parties running for office so that they can uptake these recommendations and implement it in the following administration.
These challenges that you speak of or highlight, give us or kind of crystallize the point of some of the problems that are plaguing these ECD centers. I mean, underfunding is another issue that has come under discussion in recent times.
Yes. You know, the challenges in early childhood development run very, very deep. And a lot of it is around funding. Before I even get there, I'd like to just briefly explain what early childhood development is. Because sometimes we just take for granted with people just thinking early childhood development is a creche where children go to sleep all day, you know. But this is such an important area or time period in a child's life. ECD is not referring to a place, a particular place. Early childhood development is referring to a period of time in a child's life, from inception until 6 years old, when there is significant development happening in the child's life, in the child's body. Particularly in the brain, the neural pathways are being connected. So it's very, very important for us to create an environment where children are supported in this critical time. And there are thousands of early childhood development practitioners in this country that are providing this service for young children. However, with this chronic underfunding, for example, in 2021 and 2022, only 2% of government spending went to early learning programs. They went to early nutrition and family support. And that 2% of spending is disproportional when 10% of the population are young children. We find that currently only 44% of early childhood development centers are registered. That means they are sort of listed or accounted for, right? And all the rest are not registered. And of those that are registered, only 33% of them are getting the subsidy, leaving so many ECD centers not getting the subsidy. And the reality is that only 1 in 3 children have access to ECD programs, leaving over 1 million children in the streets every day without any support. These are the grim realities of early childhood development and what needs to be addressed in this following administration.
As we continue with the theme of solutions, but also keeping in mind some of the challenges affecting ECD centers, what would you say are some of the low-hanging fruits as presented in your manifesto?
Yes. So we are calling really for an understanding of the holistic nature of early childhood development. When we're talking about early childhood development, we are speaking of different elements of early childhood development. It includes adequate nutrition. It includes access to early learning and stimulation through learning. It includes responsive care. It includes safety and security, and includes maternal and child health care. So what our manifesto does is that it draws out all of these essential elements of early childhood development and gives recommendations under each one. For instance, when we're talking about adequate nutrition, there is a need for a nutrition program at early childhood development centers. For the same way that primary schools and high schools have the National Nutrition Program, ECD centers ought to have nutrition programs of their own. Right now, we see that 1 in 4 children are suffering from stunting. So things like early detection of malnutrition have to be ramped up at early childhood development centers. For another very, very low-hanging fruit for us is in terms of the early learning programs, how to strengthen that. Currently, there is the Children's Amendment Act, and there are parts of it that deal with early childhood development. And this is sitting with the DBE, and that Children's Amendment Bill, rather, just needs to be approved by DBE, by Parliament, put before Parliament and approved. And once approved, that could make significant changes to early childhood development. What it could do is simplify registration, it could simplify safety, health and program standards, and also address the many challenges to infrastructure that we're facing. Many of the practitioners that are providing early childhood development services are doing it from their backyard, in corrugated iron shack structures, in garages. And low-hanging fruit is really understanding that infrastructure is could be, once addressed, could allow access to so many children, particularly those million that are not in centers right now.
So, but we have run out of time, but before I let you go, speak to us about some of the actionable steps that individuals or even communities themselves can play in really supporting some of these ECDs, especially the ones in remote or rural areas as well.
Thank you so much for that, Ntantla. So we need everyone who is understanding of early childhood development, everyone and anyone who cares about the rights and well-being of young children and the future of this country to engage with this manifesto and show support for this manifesto. What we are trying to do is galvanize support for it and get 10,000 signatures in support of this ECD manifesto. And in that way, it gains power representing a large constituency. And we will be handing this over to all the political parties in South Africa on the 20th of April. We'll be rallying in Braamfontein at Constitution Hill. So please visit Real Reform for ECD's website, and that is ecdreform.org.za. ecdreform.org.za. That is where you will find the ECD manifesto, where you can engage with it, sign it, show your support for it, and if you can, join us at Constitution Hill on the 20th of April, where we will be shouting loud for the rights and well-being of young children in South Africa.
Tsepo, let me thank you for your time and speaking to us about this very important initiative. That's Tsepo Manchi, is the Right to ECD coordinator, giving us more information about the People's Manifesto for Early Childhood Development in South Africa, but also importantly speaking to us about some of the objectives of this particular initiative. We bring you more news and updates in a short while.